FTC says Intuit can't advertise free tax filing.
Intuit is just trying to put their fucking nose where it doesn't belong here to try to get more, to try to suck more money out of people. You don't need this go-between of Intuit. You can do your taxes yourself. This is just, you're just putting an unnecessary intermediary in there. And if it's anything more than that,
spin up your own cloud storage with HK's own Nephele Docker image. You can have an extra computer in your house that acts as your own alternative to Google Drive or iCloud or all these other cloud providers. How the tech are you? My name is HK Perrin, and this week I've got a tax season related story because it is tax season. FTC says Intuit can't advertise free tax filing. The FTC accused Intuit of deceptive advertising for calling parts of its TurboTax software services, even though many consumers were ineligible. The FTC's final order says Intuit cannot advertise its tax services as free unless either all consumers are eligible or they properly disclose what percentage of consumers will be ineligible. Intuit claims that it's always been clear and transparent with its advertising. And TurboTax was being advertised with slogans such as TurboTax free is free. Free, free, free. Intuit maintains that they have not committed any wrongdoing in this case. What do you guys think?
They could have got away with one less free. I think they would have got away with it.
If it was just free, that would have been fine.
So like Intuit was advertising that they had free software. And I seem to remember the issue was you would go in and start doing the free version of the software. And then it would say that you had something in your tax return that was more complicated. So you need to upgrade to the paid version. Right.
Yep.
And it was like almost impossible to do the free version.
Oops, you're not eligible for free after you've done all this work.
Well, it wasn't like at the end, it was during the process. It was like, oh, well, you have this thing that doesn't qualify for the free version. And
sure, but like
everybody had something.
If that's happening to like that many users and they're not disclosing it, like I don't even know how many users it's happening to. Let's just estimate that it's happening to 40% of users, because they didn't say a majority, but they said many consumers were ineligible. Yeah. So let's just estimate 40. I could be way off here. But like if it is 40%, like, yeah, I don't think they should be able to advertise that as free, because it's not free for 40% of users. They should have to disclose that it's only free for 60% of users.
So word to the wise real quick. If your taxes, if you're just doing filing as an individual and you work a job or whatever, you don't need this go-between of Intuit. You can do your taxes yourself. This is just, you're just putting an unnecessary intermediary in there. And if it's anything more than that, find a friend who has a tax person, a tax professional they think does a good job and charges them a reasonable price, and hire that person. This halfway in between thing, that all you're doing is putting an intermediary there who isn't a person who can answer your questions, and they don't need to be there. If your taxes are simple, you can file with the government yourself. And if you make a mistake, they're not sending the fucking Gestapo after you. They're going to send you a letter that says, "Hi, we think you made a mistake."
And
then you fix the
you
mistake and everything's fine.
Yeah. Like I've done that where I myself didn't make a mistake, but a company that managed something in my finances didn't report all of what they were supposed to. And the IRS was like, hey, you owe us a lot of money. And I had to go figure out like, oh, I actually don't. This company just didn't report what it was supposed to. But they didn't say like, you're going to jail.
And this something similar happened to me.
Yeah, Intuit is just trying to put their fucking nose where it doesn't belong here to try to get more, to try to suck more money out of people. If your taxes are simple enough that you could do it on Intuit's free service, you don't even need Intuit's free service. You download the stuff from the government, fill out the stuff, send it back to the government. If your taxes are more complicated than that, if your taxes are more complicated than that, hire a tax professional to help you.
Yep. Yeah. It is in Intuit's interest, though, to lobby the government to make sure that your taxes, even if your finances are very simple, that your taxes are so complicated that you need their software. So I would say don't even support any companies that it's well known that they lobby the government to keep your taxes complicated.
Sure. Like in other countries, the government just sends you your taxes and you sign it and send it back. But
Yeah.
this halfway thing is a scam. You can either fill it out yourself or you should actually hire a person who will do it. It'll
Yeah.
be more expensive than
Yeah, you
Intuit,
should.
but they're going to get it right. And if they don't get it right, when the government comes calling to you, you go calling to them and they take care of it, don't they? Because you paid them to take care of it. See, like this is,
Yep.
This has always been bullshit. This thing right here, this has always been bullshit. You've never needed this. One more time. I know.
Also,
one last time. Your stuff is either simple enough you don't need anybody, or your stuff is complicated and you need a tax professional. There is no, well, I'm just going to use this piece of software that basically gives me the same information that I can get from the government, but I'm going to pay them for the pleasure. Don't do that.
Yep.
Also, if your
Yeah, and you're
taxes
just
are
filling out the
complicated-
same boxes in TurboTax that you would be on the tax forms that you get from the government.
Also, if your taxes are complicated enough, if you have high enough income, hiring a professional usually is basically free because whatever you pay them, they get you more than that back from savings on taxes.
Possibly, yeah.
That's happened all the time. Every time I've done it with a professional.
Yeah, I mean, there's just two scenarios, and Intuit's trying to make a third scenario that doesn't exist. And you're probably going to get yourself, if your stuff is a little bit complicated and you try to do it with Intuit, you might end up getting yourself in some kind of trouble. And I don't mean they're not coming for you, because if you're in jail, you can't make any money and pay any more taxes. So it's not really in their interest to really put people in jail, especially if they just made a mistake. But now you're going to be spending more time, then you may end up having to hire a tax person on the back end of this anyway. And now that you're in trouble, the tax person might be inclined to be like, oh, well, this is more expensive. I'm solving a problem for you, not just doing your taxes. So you end up spending more money on the back end if you screw up on your taxes using something like Intuit or TurboTax or whatever it is. Just don't use this crap. There you go.
Yep.
Don't use this crap. That was a good story, HK. And most of this I know because I've listened to a good friend of mine who is no longer in the business, but was doing tax preparation for a while. Very long time. And you would not believe the stories he told me about people who tried to use this stuff and screwed it up real bad. And then they had to go to him and he felt kind of bad, charging them, he was like, well, you've already paid this thing for this thing. He's like, I'm going to try to give you a deal, but this is going to take my time and it's going to cost me this much. Now they're even more pissed off, but it's not his fault in the first place. So
But I bet you they're never going to use TurboTax again. So maybe he saved them money in the long run.
yeah. So don't use this crap, everybody. Either do it yourself because it's that easy or hire somebody because it's not. That's it. And
Yep, I agree with that.
And over time, if you hire the same tax person every year, I bet if you have a call for them in the middle of the year where you just need a little bit of quick advice, they might not even charge you for their time because you've built a relationship with them. Anyway, what's your next story, HK?
All right. My next story is you get to spin up your own cloud storage with HK's own Nephele Docker image. This is a story of my own software that I've been working on for the underlying software I've been working on for the past year, but this new Docker image I just put out today. Nephele is a WebDAV server that is free and open source, released by my own company, Cyactiv Inc. Nephele has always been relatively hard to install compared to alternatives like Apache and SaberDAV because you would install it through NPM, which if you're not a JavaScript developer, you probably aren't familiar with that. Well, that has changed with the brand new Nephele Docker image. It took me 3 days of work to learn Docker and get Nephele working inside a Docker container, but you can now spin up your own home. You can spin this up on your own home server by forwarding a port on your router to your computer and running a dynamic DNS service like DuckDNS, Dinu, or Afraid.org, which is a very oddly named dynamic DNS service. But basically, you can have an extra computer in your house that acts as your own alternative to Google Drive or iCloud or all these other cloud providers that essentially is free to you. And you can do that with my software, Nephele.
Could I install this on a VPS if I wanted to? I don't want to. I was just asking.
Yeah, you can install this because it's Docker. It will it will run on anything that runs Docker. So it'll run on a Raspberry Pi. It will run on a Linux computer, Mac computer, Windows computer. It will run on literally anything that can run Docker. It'll run on a thing in the cloud. Anywhere where you have Docker and a file system is.
And so you said, I know it uses WebDAV. Is this like a front end for it? Like, do you get like a control panel and stuff for it? Is that what's going on with this?
This has both a back end and a front end. So it's a WebDAV server, and it does offer a web client through that server. So you can go to the address of your WebDAV server in your browser, and it'll give you kind of like a rudimentary file manager in your browser. I wanted to keep this version rudimentary because I want it to run on literally anything. You could go to it on the browser in your like Nintendo DS and it will work. You can go to it in the browser in your PS2.
Cool. Yeah, I was just wondering. I assumed that there was some kind of front end here. That's cool.
Yeah. My plans are eventually to get this working with like cloud object storage, things like Amazon S3. Right now, it's just backed by the file system, but I'd like to do Amazon S3 or Microsoft Azure blob storage, any of that, and then also build out an actual better like app for it, so you can have the choice of, do you want the very not very pretty but still functional web app that will work on literally any browser, or do you want the fancy modern web app that will give you an experience that's much more like Google Drive?
Very cool.
I don't know what else to say.
All right.
This show is not, in fact, sponsored by Sciactive.
I did want to mention during my segment when I was talking about the Nephele Docker image, I made it seem like you could only access it from a browser. You can also access it from any file manager. Yeah, so maybe we could splice that back in.
Edit that back over to yours. Okay, giving me more editing work to do.
Whatever. I'm not gonna edit that into the other part of the podcast. It just goes there.
Thank you for tuning in to How the Tech Are You? We do this show every week, and we put it out into 3 segments on YouTube, and we also put it out as a podcast. If you'd like that you can find that at echoplexmedia.com, along with all our other shows. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll have a recommended video here on the screen for you to check out next.